To our second segment, just a little bit of pubblicità. Applying for dual citizenship? Need documents translated? Istituto Mondo Italiano provides certified translation and interpretation services in 20 different languages. Be sure to visit us at www.istitutomondoitaliano.org. Okay, so we are ready for our second guest, Samuele Bozzolla. Samuele,
Hello?
buonasera. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. We can hear nice and clear. So
Okay.
the name Samuele Bozzolla might not ring a bell for some people, but for me it does. And we go back how many years, Samuele? 20 years?
At least 15, 20 years, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, a long time.
Yes, so Samuele didn't want to have any fancy introductions, so I'm going to say that he is a son of un figlio d'arte, un nipote d'arte. So I would like to spend a few minutes, obviously, honoring and talking about your family. So can you tell us who your mother was?
My mother who passed away in 2017 was Claudia Pinza. She was a voice teacher and a former opera singer. She taught at Duquesne, at the University of Pittsburgh. She had a school in Italy that she brought young American artists to Italy for 32 years. And a lot of the singers that went there had careers in opera and sang all over the world, including people from Pittsburgh like Kevin Glavin, Mariana Cornetti, and others. And of course, she got her talents and her daughter of the art that she was from my grandfather, who was Ezio Pinza, who sang at the Met. But in this country, I think he's best known for being the original Emile de Bec in South Pacific in 1947. So.
And your mom, she was born in Buenos Aires, right?
Yes,
and that is not a coincidence. What was happening?
But the Metropolitan Opera in the 20s used to do a summer tour in South America. So they would leave from New York on a boat, and they would do all the way around, and they would rehearse on the boat. They would take the time that they had on the boat to rehearse. And then they would get to Buenos Aires, in this case, and they would perform several operas and stay there 6-7 weeks. And it just happened that my mother wasn't supposed to be born when she was, but she was. And back in the 1920s, 25, when she was born, I guess things were not as easily, the doctors might have missed a couple of weeks, a month or whatever. So she was born there, and then she stayed there for about a month, and then they came back to New York, and she really spent her youth in New York City with her father.
We're going to really fast forward, but I believe that your grandfather and your mom were separated during the war, so he was not aware that your mom, Claudia, had become such a famous singer on her own, in her own right. Is that correct?
No, because she actually debuted here in the United States.
Okay.
She debuted in Faust at the Met. And then she sang pretty much all over the country, in Philadelphia and San Francisco. As a matter of fact, the story that my mom tells is that her father said, "I'd like to hear you sing." And she said, okay. So she started singing an aria from La Boheme. And my grandfather, I think, was worried that she was not good. So he held up the newspaper while she was singing. And when she was done singing, he took the newspaper away, and he was crying because he was so happy that she was as good as she was.
Wow, so. I'm just getting the chills hearing it. 1954, Claudia is in Italy, and she meets a very special person, your father.
Yes, exactly.
Rolando.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. My father at the time was young, because he was born in 1932, and he was with his mother, and his mother said, "Listen, there's a friend of ours that's coming in from Italy, from the United States. He's an opera singer, and then we have to entertain her." And my father said, "I really don't feel like doing that." finally she convinced my father to go. He met her. They went out at this party, and after that, it was history. They never separated. So.
Wonderful. It was 63 years of pure love.
Yes, 63 years, exactly. Yes, 63 years, exactly. Yes.
And we are fast forwarding again to some of your mom's accomplishments. She had also one of the longest running radio programs, Opera with Claudia, where she...
Yes, exactly. Yes, she did that for 25 years, I believe. She did it on WDUQ, the former Duquesne University station. And it would be every Sunday from 2 to 5. Live, and she just played each week. She decided on a specific opera, and then she told her memories of that certain opera or other anecdotes of the the opera world when she sang it or when she was with her father all those years.
And and also intermittent with also some, I heard that she would divulge sometimes some of her favorite recipes or feedback on upcoming young singers and their personalities.
Exactly. Yes, and she also interviewed many singers that were famous at the time, like Placido Domingo, Jose Carreras, Mirella Freni, and so forth and so on. She would go mainly to New York to interview them, and then she would record it, and then on that Sunday she would play back the interview.
Okay, so in the description that we would have you, we said we'll have someone that has had probably more dinners with Pavarotti than what he can recall. So 1973, New York.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, my father actually knew Il Maestro because my father grew up in Bologna and Maestro Pavarotti grew up in Modena. So they kind of met on the playing field playing soccer.
Any good at playing soccer?
He wasn't bad. No, the Maestro wasn't too bad. So they kind of knew each other not really well. But then in 73, they re-met in New York and with my mother. And as soon as he found out who my mother was, he was ecstatic. And that kind of started their relationship that really ended when he passed in 2007. So my parents brought him to Pittsburgh 3 separate times for 3 concerts in 76, 78, and then in 81 they actually brought him with Dame Joan Sutherland and the Pittsburgh Symphony at Heinz Hall for a mega concert. But then in 76 and 78, he came and sang at the Carnegie Music Hall in Oakland, just with piano, those 2 concerts.
And then the relationship with Maestro Pavarotti was really so personal that, you have also another brother, Simone, so he would call up to check how the 2 were doing, and so really like having almost an uncle, right?
Yes. He was very, very nice with Simone, who has cerebral palsy in the wheelchair, and he was always, because he had a cousin who had the same disability, so he knew what it was like, and so he was very, very close to Simone all the time, and it was just an amazing relationship the 2 of them had, and also with my parents and with and myself, how many times I spent with him doing at concerts, and I got to know him outside of the stage, but I have to say that the one thing that struck me, and I've been in the world of arts for many, many years, the one thing that struck me is how professional he was. Whether I heard him singing one time in Erie in front of 200 people, where he sang 110%, just like he sang if he would sing at the Hollywood Bowl in LA in front of 15, 20,000, or if he sang at the stadium with the 3 tenors. He was just, it was unbelievable how professional. He gave his 110% no matter where he was and no matter who he was singing for. It was just unbelievable. That's the one thing I'll always remember about Pavarotti, the man, the artist, of anything else. He was really a professional in every sense of the word.
So you talked about a maestro like the man. Can you share some anecdotes or some stories that our
Sure.
listeners might enjoy?
Yeah, I'll tell you a few. In 2000, he called me, it was in May. He said, we're going to be in Cleveland doing the three tenors. He said, why don't you drive up? You're in Pittsburgh, and we'll spend a little time together, and then you'll hear the concert. And I said, great. So he said, when you get to Cleveland, we're at we're staying. I think it was the Ritz-Carlton. He says, go to the lobby and ask for me, and they'll send you up, and I'll give you the ticket and things. I said, great. So I went, and I got there, I parked. I went into the lobby, and I went to the hotel concierge, and I said, hi, I'm here to see Luciano Pavarotti. And he looked at me and says, hold on. So he went on the register, looked, and he says, who? I said, Luciano Pavarotti. And he says, so I said, well, maybe I'm pronouncing it too Italian. So I said, I said, Mr. Pavarotti. and he said, no. He says, we don't have anybody by that name. And I said, well, it's strange. I just talked to him yesterday. And he said, no. So I said, okay, hold on. So I went out of the lobby, and I called him because I have, on his personal phone. And he answered. And he said to me, he says, where are you? He says, you're late. He says, I got to get on the stage. I have your ticket here. See, you're always late, he says to me. And I said, Maestro, I said, you don't exist in this hotel. He says, what do you mean? He says, you don't exist. He said, hold on. And he comes back 2 minutes later. He says, he says, I'm sorry. Ask for Fred Flintstone.
So he had a great sense of humor as well.
Yeah, so they gave him that name so that people wouldn't bother him.
Yes. And what else? I'm sure you have plenty of, so go ahead, and you're on the roll, Samuele. Please share everything with us.
One thing, I don't know if it's an anecdote, but a lot of people, especially, he was very, very heavy, and, he was over 300 pounds. But he was an excellent doubles tennis player. I played with him numerous times. He was an excellent player, especially at the net. Very fast, very agile. So that's actually surprised me because as big of a man that he was. So that was interesting. Another story. He was here doing a concert. I think the second concert was '78, and there was a rehearsal on Friday. So after the rehearsal, comes off the stage, goes up to my father, says, Rolando, he says, I have a request. And my father says, yes, Luciano, I want to go ride horses. He looked at him and said, it's 5 o'clock in the evening. Where am I going to find a horse for you to ride at this time of night? It's Friday. And, the master looked at my father and said, if you don't find me a horse tomorrow, I'm not singing.
Oh, I gave him an ultimatum.
So my father had formed a committee to sell tickets and everything. So he called somebody on the committee, and the gentleman said, yeah, let me see what I can do for you, because he was an influential person. And a half hour later, he called back and he says, I have a horse in Swickley, go head out. So we went all the way out to Swickley from Oakland. He gets there, gets on the horse. It had to be an extra size horse, of course. Gets on the horse, goes around the stable, looks at my father, says, okay, let's go and eat.
Did he have anything that, was he also a good cook, or did he?
Oh, yes. He was a very good cook, an excellent cook, and of course, an excellent eater. After most operas, he would go home at 11:30 at night to midnight. He was still on the high from singing that one of the things he loved to do is take a panettone, cut it in half, put whipped cream in the middle, and eat the whole thing.
Oh my goodness. For those of you who are not familiar with the panettone, this Christmas cake is gigantic. So,
I'll give you one more. My mother and I were in New York City. Well, my mother had some auditions for a week. So, and he was there singing Tosca. And he called my mother. He said, oh, you're here. My mother said, yeah. He says, yeah, I'm singing Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday matinee. He says, I'm going to get you tickets for each one of these performances. So my mother said, oh, okay. So we went to the Tuesday night. We went to the Thursday night. And there was a Saturday 2:00 matinee. So we get there, we go, and after the first act is over, my mother looks at me and says, "I can't take this anymore." She said, "If I see another Tosca," and so he says, "We're going." He says, "I need to go shop," because my mother was an avid shopper. So we left. Well, about 7:30 at night, we're in the hotel, phone rings, and it's Maestro Pavarotti. He says to my mother, "Why did you leave?"
Oh, so he was keeping an eye on her.
Oh, yeah, because we were like in the third row, and he was rather upset. And my mother was like, "Well, Luciano, I needed to do a few things, So he says, see,
busted."
He called my mother Bambina.
Bambina, lovely, lovely,
yeah,
lovely.
Yeah. So yeah, but it was thoroughly enjoyable. I saw him, as I said, the first time I saw him was in Philadelphia when he sang La Bohème, which was one of his favorite roles to sing. And of course, when he did recitals, his big song at the end was Puccini's Turandot Nessun Dorma. That's always he ended that. And I saw him in San Francisco doing that at a recital. When that was over, they gave him a 10-minute standing ovation. That's a long time to give somebody a 10-minute standing ovation. Yeah. So he was just a special person, and I think that what I would like to maybe portray most of all to people is that he was an opera singer. He was not a rock star. He was not a movie star. He was an opera singer. And opera is known, but it's not as known as, when you go to a rock concert or to see a movie or to see a movie star. But he is the only one that I've ever met, and I don't think there'll ever be another person like that was like a rock star. People it was unbelievable. The people, they were just crazy for him, just like if you would go see, a concert by, the Rolling Stones or the Beatles. It was just unbelievable. It was truly unbelievable to see the reaction of the people for a person who sang opera, who sang in recitals and things like that. It was unbelievable. It was. And I don't think the opera world will ever have somebody like that ever again, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there'll ever be a person that was like such a magnet to people, just like a rock star would have been. I mean, he would, and after the operas were done, he would sign autographs. And I remember one night, Herbert Breslin, who was his manager, said to him, "Luciano, it's time to go." And he looked at him and he said, "I am not leaving here until the last person is done that I have to sign, because that's why I'm here for." And that's the type of person he was.
It is a professional. Samuele, I could hold you here with many more stories. I just want to mention something, but we are kind of closing that. In 1983, your mom also launched the EPCA, so there was the Ezio Pinza Council for American Singers of Opera, and I believe this was something that Il Maestro Luciano was very adamant about that she would pursue.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was on the board, and he came to many a times, and because the school was in Oderzo, Italy, which is near Venice, and that's where they had the school. And he came there many a times. So, and my parents the last time they saw him was about 3 weeks before he passed. And they just went to his house in Pesaro. He had a summer house there, and he was in bed, not feeling well. And my father, one day it was time to leave, he said, "Ciao Luciano, ci vediamo," meaning, "Ciao, see you, Luciano, we'll see you soon." And the maestro looked at him and said, "See, yes, for sure," meaning, I don't think so.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the last time they saw him. It was about 3 weeks before he passed. He passed in September of 2007. This was late August when they were there.
Samuele. Our time is up, and so maybe in the future we'll bring you up again with some additional.
I'd love to come. I have all kind of other things I can talk about.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. Buona serata. Salutami anche Simone. We'll see you soon. Ciao. So also for today, our time is up. The Big Ben, il Big Ben ha detto stop, and it's time for us to say arrivederci e alla prossima. We want to thank you for listening, and if you have any questions or comments, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And next week, we will dedicate our episode in memoriam of anti-mafia judge Falcone, who was killed in a bombing on May 23rd in 1992 in Capaci, Sicily. Our guest will be the young president of the Sicilian Association called Addio Pizzo, Dario Riccobono, an Italian-American folk singer, Michela Musolino, who has made of Sicilian folk music her passion and her life. Remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, Please visit us our website at www.istitutomonditaliano.org and click on the Italian Radio Hour tab. Vorremmo ringraziare i nostri ospiti Russell Shorto e Samuele Bozzolla, il nostro sponsor Istituto Mondo Italiano e alla Boara per la musica. Finally, before we leave, here is the language trivia for next week. What does conosco i miei polli mean? Again, what does conosco i miei polli mean? Send us your answer at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. If you're not in the Pittsburgh area or might be traveling, remember you can also catch us streaming live at khbradio.com every Thursday at 5 o'clock. And be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at the Italian Radio Hour. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao ciao!
The Italian Radio Hour has been sponsored by Istituto Mondo Italiano.